To escape the Tempest, she entered my shelter and couldn't believe what she saw. Lightning arced across the blood-red sky, striking jagged rock formations and sending showers of sparks into the air. Winds howled like beasts, bending the few remaining trees in the landscape as if they were made of paper. Few could survive outside in these conditions, and fewer still could thrive. Inside his shelter, human engineer and explorer Cadden closed a heavy metal hatch and sealed it tight. The storm's roar became a dull thunder in the background, muffled by the thick walls of his dome-shaped refuge. The shelter was small but remarkably efficient. Lights hummed softly, powered by solar panels and wind turbines outside, reinforced to survive the harshest weather. Sensors lined the walls, monitoring temperature, air pressure, and the outside environment. Every inch of the space was optimized for survival. Cadden moved through his domain like a master in his kingdom. Every tool, every device, every supply had a place. The table was covered with repair kits, a small 3D printer, and data pads filled with schematics of the shelter's systems. Food and water supplies were stored neatly, enough to last months if necessary. It was a human shelter built with a human mind, clever, durable, adaptable. Despite the storm outside, Cadden felt a calm sense of purpose. He had survived many such tempests before, and he knew the patterns. He checked the monitors one last time. The winds had reached speeds that could shred metal, but the shelter's outer hull was reinforced with layered alloys and flexible membranes. It would hold. Then came the sound that made him pause. A thud. Outside the metal hatch. He froze, listening. Another thud. Something or someone was moving against the storm. Cadden's first instinct was caution. On a planet like this, few things moved without reason. Predators were rare, but scavengers and desperate travelers often wandered into danger. He grabbed a long, reinforced staff from the corner, a combination of walking stick and defensive tool, and approached the door. He opened the small observation window in the hatch. Through the swirling rain and dust, he saw a figure struggling against the wind. It was humanoid but not human. Its skin shimmered faintly under the red light of the storm, and long limbs carried it forward with effort. The figure collapsed against the ground, dragged almost backward by the gale. Cadden's heart quickened. Few aliens had visited this planet, and even fewer had survived this far from the designated landing zones. He had read reports from explorers and trade ships, stories of aliens caught in storms, never to be seen again. And here, one of them was right outside his door. He hesitated only for a moment. Then he opened the hatch. The alien looked up with wide, luminescent eyes. Fear and exhaustion were clear in her expression. Her clothing was torn, and small cuts across her arms and legs revealed pale, iridescent skin underneath. She had come far, and it showed in every movement. The storm howled, and the small opening became a tunnel of wind and sand. "Come inside," Cadden shouted, bracing himself. For a long moment she froze. Suspicion and caution warred with her obvious need for shelter. Finally, exhaustion won. She allowed him to grab her arm and pull her into the small space. The hatch closed behind them with a heavy thud. The noise of the storm outside became a muffled roar again. She stood in the middle of the shelter, her eyes wide as she took in her surroundings. Cadden noticed every detail in her gaze, the mixture of shock, disbelief, and fascination. Most visitors, human or alien, would have been impressed by the shelter's efficiency, but she looked stunned. You live like this?" she asked, her voice soft but clear. It had a musical quality unlike any human voice he had heard. Cadden nodded. "Yes. It's not much, but it keeps me alive out there, and it works." He gestured around the small room. "Everything here is made to survive the storms." She walked slowly, almost reverently, touching a panel here, a monitor there. "I thought humans were fragile, weak. I never imagined you could build this." Cadden gave a small, proud smile. "Humans survive where others can't. We adapt, that's all." The alien hesitated, then sank to the floor near the small heater. She shivered. I didn't expect kindness, not from a stranger. Not from a human. Cadden moved to the small kitchenette area, boiling water and preparing a simple nutrient drink. Storms don't care about trust, but inside you'll be safe, for now. She accepted the drink with trembling hands, sipping slowly. Her eyes never left the room, taking in the strange combination of human technology and practicality. You make life possible where it shouldn't exist. How? Cadden shrugged. We use our minds, we plan, we anticipate, and we never stop learning. That's how humans survive. For the first time, she seemed to relax. I have traveled far to escape the Tempest, she said, her voice quieter now. My world, it is dying. Our storms have grown worse and our lands are no longer safe. I did not think I would survive. Cadden nodded. He understood the feeling all too well. Life on harsh planets had a way of humbling anyone, regardless of species. You're safe here, but we need to prepare for the next wave. This storm won't last forever and more may follow. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and awe. Your people humans, they are stronger than I imagined, and clever. Cadden looked around his shelter, then back at her. We don't do it to impress anyone, we do it to live. And sometimes, living is enough to make a difference. Hours passed as the storm raged outside. Cadden checked the shelter's systems repeatedly, ensuring everything remained operational. She sat quietly, gradually recovering strength. Occasionally, she asked questions about the shelter's systems, its energy sources, and the strange devices scattered around. Cadden answered patiently, explaining each one with simple language. She seemed particularly fascinated by a small 3D printer he used to create tools and replacement parts. You can make anything from here, she asked, pointing to the machine. Cadden nodded. Most things we need to survive. Materials, tools, even small mechanical parts. It can't do everything, but it keeps us going when nothing else is available. She leaned back, absorbing the information. I thought humans were weak, she said softly. I thought you would not survive, not here, not on a planet like this. Cadden smiled wryly. We're not invincible, but we try, and sometimes trying is enough. The storm continued its relentless assault, shaking the shelter with wind and lightning strikes. Yet inside, a quiet sense of order and control persisted. Cadden checked his supplies again, noting water levels, energy reserves, and food stores. He felt the familiar satisfaction of being prepared. Tomorrow, he said, looking out at the swirling red sky through the observation window, we will need to plan your next steps. But tonight you rest. You've been through a lot, she nodded, closing her eyes briefly. I do not know how to repay you. You saved me. Cadden shook his head. You don't owe me anything. Survival, that's payment enough. And maybe in time you'll see that humans are not as fragile as you thought. For a long while they sat in quiet. The storm howled outside, but inside the shelter, warmth, light, and life persisted. Cadden watched her slowly regain strength. Despite her alien nature, her resilience impressed him. She had survived far worse than he had, traveling across a storm-ravaged landscape that would have killed most creatures. Finally, she looked at him with clear eyes, no longer just fear or exhaustion, but curiosity. You're kind humans, you survive even when nothing should allow it. I did not believe it before, but now I see. You are remarkable, Cadden chuckled. We're not perfect, but we adapt. That's what makes humans strong. Lightning illuminated the sky, striking far in the distance. The shelter trembled slightly but held firm. Cadden felt the familiar thrill of surviving another tempest, but this time there was something different. He was not alone. And for the first time in a long while, he wondered what would happen when the storm ended, and the alien who had stumbled into his life faced the world beyond his shelter. The night stretched on. Outside, the tempest continued its fury. Inside, human ingenuity and alien wonder coexisted in a small, protected space. Cadden sat back, listening to the storm, thinking about the days ahead. The shelter was safe, the system stable, and the alien recovering. All that remained was time and the possibilities that came with it. Tomorrow, they would face new challenges. The storm would pass, but what lay beyond it was unknown. And yet, for the first time, both of them felt a spark of hope in a world defined by chaos and survival. Cadden checked the monitors one last time before closing his eyes. The storm would continue outside, but inside, life persisted. And sometimes, life itself was the greatest achievement of all. The storm had not let up by morning. Wind still rattled the shelter's reinforced walls, and lightning split the blood-red sky every few minutes. Outside, the world was a blur of sand and rain, a dangerous place for anyone caught in the open. Yet inside, Cadden's small sanctuary remained calm, organized, and alive. The alien woman, whose name he had learned was Lyra, sat at the small table, examining the nutrient packs he had prepared. Her hands were steady now and her breathing less ragged. The storm had forced her to rely on him, and slowly she was starting to trust. "You humans are strange," she said, breaking the silence. "You survive here, you live alone in a place that should kill you, and yet you build, you plan, you endure." Cadden smiled, sipping water from a metal cup. "We adapt, that's what humans do. We learn to survive in places others can't. It's not bravery or luck, it's planning and persistence." Lyra tilted her head, considering his words. "Planning, yes. Your technology, your shelter, it is incredible. I thought humans were fragile, but this is proof you are far stronger than I imagined." Cadden waved a hand modestly. "It's just a shelter, nothing special. The storm outside is the real test, not the walls." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Perhaps. But not everyone could survive as you have. You are remarkable." The conversation paused as the storm intensified, the winds howling louder than before. Small tremors shook the shelter as lightning struck nearby rock formations. Cadden moved to the control panel and checked the monitors. Everything was stable, but the storm's energy was growing. "We may be in for a long day," he said. "The storm is not letting up. We should prepare." Lyra watched him work, fascination and respect in her eyes. "How do you know what to do?" she asked. "How do you survive storms like this?" Cadden chuckled softly. "Experience, observation. We study nature, predict patterns, and adjust. It's not perfect, but it works." She nodded slowly. "On my world, we can survive storms, but only with large groups with many resources. Alone, few would endure. Humans, you endure alone." Cadden shrugged. "Some of us must. Sometimes being alone is safer, less chaos, fewer mistakes, but you have traveled far alone." "That is impressive." Lyra blushed slightly, a faint glow radiating from her skin. "I had no choice. The storm forced me into this path. I thought I would die, but here I am, alive because of you." Cadden nodded. "And now we prepare for the next step." Over the next few hours, Cadden showed Lyra the inner workings of the shelter. He explained the energy systems, the air filtration units, and the automated water recycling modules. She listened intently, her eyes widening as he spoke. "This is beyond anything I imagined humans could achieve," she said softly. "You survive in places even my people fear. You are remarkable." Cadden smiled, feeling a quiet pride. "We do what we must. Survival is not about fear. It's about preparation, observation, and learning from every mistake." Lyra walked over to a small 3D printer in the corner, her curiosity overpowering her exhaustion. "You can create anything with this?" she asked, pointing at the machine. Cadden nodded. "Most of what we need. Tools, replacement parts, even small devices. It's not perfect, but it's enough to keep us alive." She studied the printer, then looked back at him. "Your species, humans, you adapt in ways I cannot fully understand. On my planet, we depend on groups, networks, technology, but not like this. Alone, you thrive." Cadden shrugged. "We have to. Our environments are harsh, and sometimes isolation is safer. but cooperation helps too when it's possible. For a long while, they worked together in the shelter. Lyra showed him some of the small survival devices she carried from her home world. Some were sensors, others were tools for detecting environmental changes. Cadden examined them with fascination, noting their ingenuity. "Your technology is different," he said. "It works for your conditions, but it can be adapted. With a few adjustments, we could integrate some of these systems into the shelter." Lyra's eyes lit up. "You would do that. You would help me make this place stronger." Cadden shrugged again. "We survive together, that's the point. If we learn from each other, both species benefit." The storm outside raged on, but inside, the small space became a place of collaboration. They shared knowledge, repaired damaged devices, and modified existing systems. The human ingenuity of the shelter combined with Lyra's alien technology created a synergy neither had expected. As the day wore on, the storm began to show signs of change. The winds remained strong, but the lightning frequency lessened slightly. Cadden monitored the systems, noting the shifting patterns. "We may have a small window," he said. "If the storm eases, we can send signals outside, maybe alert someone to your location." Lyra's eyes glowed with hope. "You would help me contact my people?" Cadden nodded. "It's not much, but it's something. Survival is about opportunity. We take what we can when we can." Together, they prepared a signal transmitter. Cadden adapted some of Lyra's devices, integrating them with his own systems. The alien watched, fascinated as he worked with precision and efficiency. "You humans," she said softly. "Your minds, you think differently. You solve problems that seem impossible." I never imagined this." Cadden looked at her, a hint of a smile on his face. "We do what we must. Adaptation is survival, and sometimes survival is more than just staying alive. It's making a difference." Lyra nodded, absorbing the meaning behind his words. "You have taught me much already. Even in one day I see your strength, your ingenuity, your courage. My people, they will not believe it if I return and tell them what humans can do." The hours passed. The storm outside began to weaken gradually, though it was far from over. Cadden checked the transmitter, ensuring it was ready to send a signal when conditions allowed. "Tomorrow," he said, "we may be able to reach someone, but tonight we rest. You need strength, and so do I." Lyra sat quietly, staring at the lights and devices around her. "I did not think I would survive this storm," she said softly. "But here I am, alive because of you. Humans, you are stronger than I imagined." Cadden nodded. "We survive, that's all we do. And sometimes surviving is enough to change the course of events." The night stretched on. The storm continued, though less violently than before. Inside the shelter, a quiet sense of accomplishment settled over them. Lyra had recovered enough to move more freely, and she began assisting Cadden with minor tasks, checking systems, repairing small devices, and organizing supplies. "You learn quickly," Cadden said, observing her work. "For someone unfamiliar with this technology, you are very capable." Lyra smiled faintly. "I have had to learn quickly to survive. Your shelter, your people, you inspire me. I can see now that humans are more resilient than any other species I have encountered." Cadden felt a surge of pride tempered by humility. "We do what we must. Resilience is not about being the strongest. It's about enduring, learning, and adapting." As dawn approached, the storm outside began to lessen further. The wind still howled, but lightning was rare now and the rain had slowed to a steady drizzle. Cadden monitored the systems, noting the improvement. Lyra looked out the small window, watching the changing landscape. "It is still dangerous," she said. "But it is less deadly than before. Your shelter, it is a fortress." "A miracle," Cadden smiled. "It's nothing compared to what humans can do in larger numbers. Alone, it's just survival. Together, we can build cities, colonize worlds, even survive storms that seem impossible." She turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. I did not believe it before. I thought humans were weak, but now I see. Your species, you endure, you adapt, you thrive. The day progressed and the storm continued to ease. Cadden and Lyra worked side by side, sharing knowledge and skills. She showed him some of the ways her species measured atmospheric changes, while he demonstrated the shelter's systems and techniques for maintaining life in extreme conditions. By evening, the storm had mostly passed, leaving behind a battered but intact landscape. The shelter had held firm, its systems functioning flawlessly. Cadden checked the transmitter, preparing to send a signal to Lyra's people. "It may take time," he said, "but at least someone will know you are here. Survival is only the first step. Next comes hope." Lyra nodded, a quiet determination in her eyes. "Hope, yes. I will carry that back to my people, and I will tell them of humans. Of your ingenuity, your courage, your ability to survive when all seems lost." Cadden watched the sky darken as the sun set, the remnants of the storm casting a red glow across the horizon. "Humans survive," he said quietly. "And sometimes that survival can change more than just our own lives. It can inspire others, even across the stars." Lyra looked at him, her expression a mixture of awe and respect. "You have taught me much, more than I ever imagined. Tomorrow we will send the signal. Tomorrow my journey continues, but tonight I am alive, and that is everything." Cadden nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The storm had tested them, but both had endured. And in the process, Lyra had seen the true strength of humanity, not in power or weapons, but in ingenuity, courage, and the ability to survive where others would fail. As night fell completely, the shelter hummed quietly, lights glowing softly, systems operating flawlessly. Outside, the world was battered but alive. Inside, two beings from different worlds shared warmth, knowledge, and hope. And for the first time, both realized that survival was more than staying alive. It was the ability to inspire, to teach, and to endure against all odds. The storm did not end quietly. It never did on this planet. Instead of fading away, it changed its nature, becoming slower but heavier, like a wounded beast refusing to die. The wind no longer screamed, but it pressed constantly against the shelter, testing every seal and every joint. The sky outside turned a darker shade of red, thick clouds rolling low across the land. Cadden stood at the main console, watching the data scroll across the screen. Energy levels were stable, but external sensors showed something new. The atmospheric pressure was dropping in uneven waves, a sign he had only seen once before. "This is not normal," he said quietly. Lyra, who had been organizing tools nearby, looked up immediately. "What is happening?" "The storm is changing form," Cadden replied. "It's collapsing inward. When that happens, it creates ground surges. Massive ones," she frowned. "On my world, storms like that tear open the land." Cadden nodded. "Same here." Almost on cue, the ground trembled, not violently, but enough to make small tools rattle on the table. The shelter compensated automatically, stabilizers adjusting to keep the structure balanced. Lyra stared at the walls, her calm slipping just a little. "Can your shelter survive this?" Cadden did not answer right away. He checked the structural integrity readings, jaw tightening slightly. "It can survive if nothing goes wrong." Her eyes widened. "If this planet always adds surprises," he said. "We need to prepare." They moved quickly. Cadden activated secondary power systems, routing energy away from non-essential areas. Lights dimmed slightly, but the shelter remained warm. Lyra followed his movements closely, learning, observing, helping where she could. "What can I do?" she asked. Cadden handed her a small device. "This monitors vibration frequency. If the ground shifts beyond tolerance, I need to know immediately." She took it seriously, gripping it with both hands. "Understood." Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the low hum of machines and the distant rumble outside. Then the vibration meter in Lyra's hands began to glow faintly. "It's rising," she said. Slowly, Cadden adjusted the stabilizers again. Good catch. Another tremor followed, stronger this time. Dust fell from the ceiling vents, though the structure held. Lyra's breathing quickened, but she did not panic. She watched Cadden work, his movements calm and deliberate. "You are not afraid," she said. "I am," Cadden replied honestly. "I just don't let it decide for me." She absorbed that quietly. Then something unexpected happened. An alert sounded from a system neither of them had touched. Cadden turned sharply. "That's not possible." "What is it?" Lyra asked. He stared at the screen. "External signal detection. Something is transmitting nearby." Her eyes widened. "My people?" "Maybe," Cadden said, "but the signal pattern is unstable." He boosted the receiver. Static filled the room, broken by brief pulses of sound and data. The signal was weak, distorted by the storm, but it was real. Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling. "That frequency, it is not a rescue craft, it's a probe." Cadden frowned. "A probe doesn't come this close during a storm." Another tremor shook the shelter, stronger than before. The signal spiked. Lyra looked at the display, fear flickering across her face. "That probe is damaged, it's falling." Cadden's eyes widened. "If it hits nearby," the ground lurched violently. The shelter rocked, alarms blaring. Lyra was thrown against the wall, but Cadden grabbed her arm, pulling her back to her feet. The impact came seconds later. The sound was deep and heavy, like the planet itself had been struck. The ground shook violently, far worse than before. Systems flickered. One of the monitors went dark. Lyra cried out. "The probe, it crashed." Cadden was already moving. "I know." Another alarm sounded, sharper this time. "Structural stress rising," the system warned. Cadden cursed under his breath. That impact destabilized the ground. "If a fracture reaches us." The shelter shook again, then stopped. Silence followed, heavy and unnatural. Lyra clutched the vibration device. "Readings are stabilizing slowly." Cadden exhaled. That was too close. They stood there for a moment, listening to the hum of the shelter, the distant wind outside. Then Lyra spoke softly. "That probe carries data from my people. Information about our failing world. If it is destroyed." Cadden looked at her. "You want to go outside?" She met his gaze. "Yes." He did not answer immediately. Going outside after a ground surge was extremely dangerous. The land could still collapse, toxic gases could leak from below, and the storm, though weaker, was not gone. "You could die," he said. She nodded. "So could my people if that data is lost." Cadden looked back at the monitors, then at her. He saw fear in her eyes, but also resolve. The same kind he had seen in humans who faced impossible odds and stepped forward anyway. "I'll go with you," he said. Her eyes widened. "You would risk yourself for my people." Cadden grabbed his environmental suit. "Humans don't survive by thinking small." They prepared quickly. Cadden sealed his suit, checking filters and power levels. Lyra activated her own protective gear, slimmer and more elegant, but clearly damaged from her journey. The hatch opened with a hiss. Outside, the world looked broken. The storm clouds still hung low, but the wind had slowed. The ground was cracked in long, jagged lines. In the distance, half buried in debris, lay the probe. Smoke rose from it in thin trails. They moved carefully, stepping over unstable ground. Lyra stumbled once, but Cadden caught her before she fell. "Slow," he said. "Feel the ground before each step." She nodded, copying his movements. As they approached the probe, they saw the damage clearly. Its outer shell was fractured, energy leaking from broken panels. "It's still active," Lyra said, scanning it, "but failing." Cadden knelt beside it, opening a tool compartment. "Then we work fast." They worked together, human and alien hands moving in sync. Cadden stabilized the power flow while Lyra accessed the internal data core. Sparks flew as the probe resisted their efforts. "Hurry," Cadden said. "Energy levels are dropping." "I'm trying," Lyra replied, her voice tense. The ground trembled again, weaker this time, but enough to remind them of the danger. Then Lyra gasped. "I have it." She pulled a small crystal-like device from the probe, holding it carefully. This contains everything. The probe let out a final pulse of energy and went dark. They did not wait. The return trip felt longer, heavier. Every step carried the weight of what they had just done. When they reached the shelter, Cadden sealed the hatch behind them, both of them breathing hard. Inside, the warmth felt unreal. Lyra stared at the data core in her hands. Her hands shook slightly. This may save my world. Cadden removed his helmet. Then it was worth it. She looked at him, eyes glowing softly. You risked your life without hesitation. He shrugged. Humans do that, especially when the stakes are bigger than us. She was silent for a long moment, then she spoke quietly. My people believed humans were reckless, short-lived, weak. Cadden smiled faintly. We hear that a lot. She shook her head. They were wrong. You face storms that destroy worlds and you build shelters. You face collapse and you step forward. Cadden turned back to the console, checking the shelter's condition. We don't wait for the galaxy to save us. We save ourselves. Sometimes others too. Lyra clutched the data core to her chest. I will tell them. I will tell them what I saw, what you did. The storm outside continued to fade. Sensors showed calmer conditions ahead. For the first time since she had arrived, the future did not feel like a wall closing in. They sat together in the shelter, exhaustion settling in. The machines hummed softly around them, steady and reliable. You changed everything today, Lyra said. Cadden leaned back against the wall. So did you. You didn't give up. She smiled faintly. Perhaps that is why humans survive. You refuse to accept the end. Cadden looked at the quiet shelter, at the system still running, at the alien woman who had entered his life through a storm. Endings are just problems we haven't solved yet, he said. Outside, the red clouds slowly began to break apart, letting faint light touch the broken land. The Tempest had not won. Not this time. The sun rose slowly over the battered landscape, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. The storm had passed, leaving behind deep gullies carved by wind and rain, jagged rocks scattered like broken teeth, and a sky that shimmered in shades of red and gold. The planet, though harsh and unforgiving, revealed a strange, raw beauty after the tempest. Inside the shelter, Cadden and Lyra prepared for the next step. The alien's eyes gleamed with determination, no longer clouded by fear or exhaustion. She had learned the inner workings of the shelter, mastered some of its systems, and even suggested improvements using her own technology. Together, they had forged a small partnership, built not just on survival, but on mutual respect and curiosity. Are you ready? Cadden asked, checking the transmitter one last time. The device hummed softly, connected to the shelter's systems and adapted with Lyra's equipment. It was capable of sending a signal across the storm-ravaged terrain to anyone monitoring the planet. Lyra nodded, her hands steady now. I am ready. My people need to know I am alive. They need guidance and hope, and I will carry your teachings with me. Cadden smiled. Then let's send the signal. It may take time for someone to respond, but at least your message will travel. Together, they activated the transmitter. The hum of electricity filled the shelter, and a pulse of light emanated from the device. Cadden monitored the readings, ensuring the signal was strong enough to pierce the planet's atmosphere and reach orbiting satellites. As the minutes passed, they watched the small screens tracking the signal as it traveled. Lyra's eyes sparkled with awe. Your technology, humans, it is incredible. Even here on this remote planet you can reach across the stars. Cadden shrugged modestly. We do what we must. Technology, planning, and patience, those are our tools, but it is hope that drives us forward. Without hope, survival is just existing. The signal sent, they turned their attention to the outside world. The storm had left destruction in its wake, but also opportunities. Pools of water collected in rock depressions, areas of loose soil revealed hidden minerals, and the sky, though scarred with clouds, promised a clearer day ahead. Lyra stepped to the observation window, scanning the horizon. The storm has changed the land. My path, my journey, it will not be easy, but I am stronger now, and I have learned from your people. Cadden moved beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You have endured the worst this planet could throw at you, and you adapted. That is more than most species can claim. Humans survive by learning from every challenge. You've done the same today. She smiled faintly, her glow softening. I will carry this knowledge back to my people. Your teachings, your methods. Humans are remarkable. They endure when others would fail. The shelter, though small, had become a classroom, a laboratory, and a refuge. Together, they had repaired broken systems, adapted alien technology, and faced the storm's fury as a team. Lyra had learned quickly, but Cadden had also learned from her, the alien perspective, the ingenuity of her species, and the resilience required to survive on a dying world. Hours passed as they prepared for her departure. Lyra packed her remaining devices carefully, securing them against the planet's harsh conditions. Cadden checked her supplies, adding nutrient packs, clean water, and a compact toolkit. You have everything you need, he said. The path ahead will be dangerous, but you are stronger than the storm. Lyra looked at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. I cannot thank you enough. You have saved my life. You have taught me more than I ever imagined. I will carry this with me always. Cadden nodded. You don't need to thank me. Survival is what matters, and sometimes surviving is enough to change the course of events. They stepped outside together, the wind cool against their faces, carrying the scent of rain and scorched earth. The landscape stretched endlessly, a challenge waiting to be faced. Lyra paused, taking in the view. This planet, it is harsh, but humans, you make life possible here. You endure even alone. That is incredible, Cadden smiled. We survive where others cannot. And we help when we can. That is what makes humans strong. Lyra took a deep breath, her determination firm. I will return to my people. I will tell them of humans, of your ingenuity and courage, and I will use what I have learned here to help them survive, to adapt to endure. Cadden nodded. That is all I could hope for, and remember, the storm does not last forever. Opportunities follow the tempest. Always watch for them. She adjusted her pack and activated a small thruster device. The alien craft hummed, ready for launch. Lyra turned to him one last time. Your people, humans, you have taught me that survival is not just about strength, but about intelligence, courage, and the will to endure. I will not forget it. Cadden smiled, feeling a quiet pride. Go safely. And may your journey bring hope to your people. The thruster ignited, lifting Lyra into the air. She hovered for a moment, looking down at the shelter, then at Cadden. Her eyes glowed with gratitude and determination. Then, with a graceful tilt, she soared toward the horizon, leaving trails of light against the red sky. Cadden watched until she was a small speck in the distance. The storm had passed, but its lessons remained. He returned to the shelter, checking systems, ensuring everything was ready for the next challenge. Survival was never easy, but it was possible. Humans had proven it again. As night fell, Cadden sat at the observation window, staring at the stars above. The signal he had sent would reach Lyra's people soon, carrying a message of hope, knowledge, and human ingenuity. Across the galaxy, someone would learn that humans were not just survivors. They were teachers, innovators, and a force capable of inspiring others. The shelter hummed quietly, its lights casting a warm glow. Outside, the world was still harsh, but inside, life persisted. And sometimes, that persistence was the greatest achievement of all. Cadden reflected on the past days, the storm, Lyra's arrival, the challenges they had faced together. Humanity's strength was not in weapons or numbers, but in the ability to think, adapt, and endure. Lyra had seen it firsthand, and soon her people would too. The stars shimmered in the night sky, a reminder that the universe was vast, full of dangers and wonders alike. But humans, wherever they went, could leave a mark. Their resilience, ingenuity, and courage could inspire life even on the most hostile worlds. Cadden closed his eyes, feeling the quiet satisfaction of survival and accomplishment. The storm had tested them, but humans had endured. And sometimes, endurance was enough to change the world, or even a distant species that had once thought humans weak. He thought of Lyra, soaring across the barren landscape, carrying lessons learned and hope to her people. The galaxy was wide and humans were small in comparison. Yet, through ingenuity, courage, and perseverance, they could influence worlds beyond their own. That was the true power of humanity, not the technology itself, but the minds and hearts behind it. Night passed, and the first light of a new day crept over the horizon. Cadden checked the shelter's systems one final time, ensuring everything was functioning perfectly. He knew that storms would come again, that challenges would never truly end. But humans were ready. They would survive, they would adapt, and they would inspire. Across the stars, somewhere, Lyra's people would learn of the humans who had saved their messenger, the beings who could thrive in the harshest conditions through intelligence, courage, and determination. Humanity had made a difference again, not through force, but through the quiet strength of ingenuity and endurance. Cadden smiled to himself, feeling a profound connection to the universe. Humans were small, fragile perhaps, but capable of greatness beyond measure. And somewhere across the cosmos, their influence was already taking root. The sun rose higher, bathing the planet in light. The storm was gone, the shelter stood firm, and Cadden prepared for whatever challenges awaited next. Humanity had survived another test, and in doing so, had proven once more that the true strength of a species lay not in its power, but in its ability to endure, to adapt, and to inspire hope wherever it went. And with that, life continued, both in the shelter and beyond, a quiet testament to human ingenuity, courage, and the unyielding will to survive and thrive against all odds. To escape the tempest, she entered my shelter and couldn't believe what she saw.